Money, money, money.
All right. The official message says to let everyone know we're being recorded and transcribed. Again, thanks so much, Dr. Johnson, for being here to help all of us out on the financial aspects of transitioning out of residency. The floor is all yours.
Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, the reason why I offered to do this is because for the last couple months, since I was in Captain's Career Course, I had no idea what was going on. I wasn't getting paid any different. All of us within our fourth year group chat, or I guess now post-residency group chat, were asking how you get your incentive pay and stuff, and nobody really had any good answers. And then I come to find out now that I'm here that because I went to career course and didn't get credentialed at my future duty station before I went to career course, I wasn't eligible for incentive pay for the whole duration that I was at career course, which sucked. I mean, that's 2.5 months of incentive pay that I don't get. So I was really fired up about it for a little while, and then just kind of figured it is what it is. But I was like, man, I lost $8,000 from that. So why don't I tell people about it so that it doesn't happen to them? So that was kind of the motivation. I have some slides here. Like I told you earlier, I think they're more just train of thought slides. There's not a ton of content on them, but I'll go through them quickly. And then I have PDFs and examples of memos and things like that that are relevant. So we'll just plug along. There we go. All right, so objectives. These are the 3 things that we're going to talk about: board reimbursement pay, specialty pay, and board certification pay. And then specifically, what documents do you need? Who do you need to contact to get these things started? What time frame does this need to be done by? And then kind of along the way, we'll talk about pitfalls and common mistakes. So board reimbursement pay, the bluff, you guys are all entitled to receive full reimbursement for your board exam or COMLEX equivalent. And I guess I didn't put this on here, but there's a caveat that you have to pass. So you are eligible for this in full as long as you pass. So who? You have to speak to your finance officer or budget analyst. It's different. So Matt Hunter had to speak with the finance officer. I spoke with my finance officer and they sent me to a budget analyst. Kind of just depends on the hierarchy of your unit. But I would say if you don't know who to talk to, S1 is always a great person to go to. Essentially, S1 is your HR department. And so they're not the person you go to, but if you're who do I need to speak to with this? They'll tell you the exact person. So S1 is always kind of my liaison for getting any information that I need that I don't have. So in general, though, the end state person is either a finance officer or budget analyst. So these are the things you're going to need. So this is specifically, like I said, for board reimbursement pay. So just getting reimbursed for that $2,000 that you paid for your ABPN exam. So you need an SF 3881, which you can get on Army Pubs. There's just, online fillable forms. And I have an example at the end that I'll show you. You need an MFR, which is a memorandum for record, signed by your commander or deputy commander. And I have 3 examples, one from Keenan, one from Matt Hunter, and one from myself. All 3 of us got approved for this, so they're all viable examples. You need receipts of purchase of your exam. So essentially you just need, I took a screenshot of my email because there's not a printed or printable receipt, so to speak, but a screenshot of the email from ABPN that just shows that you paid for the exam and what amount you paid is all they need. And then at some point you're going to need a confirmation of passing. And that can be your ABPN board verification. So once you pass and you get an email saying that you passed, you can log back onto the ABPN website. And there's a little tab or link that you can say for board verification. And it's a single sheet of PDF that just says your name is, this is verification that so-and-so passed their exam and is board certified. So that's printable. And then here, just this kind of highlighted italics text it's just an excerpt from my commands or my unit's instruction. So it's probably going to be a little bit different for every unit, but I think for most units, it's relatively the same. So I'll just read it really quick and then we'll talk about some specifics. So the employee must request approval for reimbursement prior to incurring the expense. That's not entirely strict. In my experience, in my peers' experience, as long as you have either dated the MFR prior to taking the exam, and really all that really matters is that you get your commander's endorsement. If you get an MFR signed by your commander saying, yep, we think that this guy should get reimbursed, the finance office is not going to like argue with your commander. So the biggest thing is just getting that MFR signed. But the request must be in writing, hence the MFR. To respective deputy commander, etc., must specify items covered. So basically just like the board exam, and that it meets the requirements of the Department of Defense. So you'll see in my MFR, there's a line in there that says, this like basically how you taking this exam is necessary for your AOC and how it's meeting the demands or the needs of the Army. It's like a super small sentence, but it's what they need. And then again, the commander will deny your approval or grant your approval, which is just them signing the MFR. And then approval will be conditioned upon successful receipt of credentials. And you'll find that credentials are a common theme to this whole thing. So when? So technically before you incur the expense, but like I said, really all that matters is that your commander signs it. And then for my example and for Keenan's example, we just threw the date on our MFRs to be before we took the exam, even though it's not accurate. We just fudged it and it worked out fine. It kind of really just depends on how strict your finance office is. But I would say as long as you have an MFR dated before the exam, so before September 15th, 2023, or whenever you guys take it, signed by your commander, you're totally fine. And then you just need on there to show like when you passed. So in theory, like this MFR will be signed in November, December, like after you pass the exam, because you have to have proof of passing in order to do it. Yeah. Where? More than likely at your next duty station. I don't know if Walter Reed is set up to do reimbursements for board exams because the command, like it comes from like unit funds. And I don't know if Walter Reed, like Charlie Company, has funds to fund, 250 board exams for every single resident. I think that's probably unrealistic. So more than likely, this is something that you're going to have to do at your next duty station. And I would recommend that you do it essentially as soon as you get confirmation of passing, just start doing it right away. They can back pay you, but it's just one less headache that you have to worry about. If you're still at Walter Reed, obviously you would be eligible. Like if you're staying on as an attending or staff, like you would obviously be eligible, and you would just have to talk to or figure out whoever your finance officer is. I think it's Mr. Dugan in Charlie Company, but I don't know if your unit or command changes once you're an attending. I'm not sure if you stay with Charlie Company or not. That might be a question for Dr. Amin. I'm not sure. And then why? Obviously because money. Like why go out $2,000 if you don't have to? Before we go to specialty pay, does anybody have questions? Stephen, Omen, let's see, we got Fisher, Rosina, and Miracle. Any of you guys have questions about board certification reimbursement?
Not from my end, Andrew. The only thing I'd say is, for those people who stay on as fellows, they'll have passed their board's residency and still remain at Walter Reed. So I'm guessing that there must be some sort of way to do it here. Like for the CAPS fellowship, everybody who passes their boards, I think Dr. Wynn and maybe some of the other second years have gotten their reimbursement done while still at Walter Reed. So I don't know what that mechanism is, but perhaps
there's definitely got to be a way to do it. I agree with you. You'll have to speak with your finance person. Like I said, I think it's Mr. Dugan in Charlie Company. I don't know. Are you still in Charlie Company, Stephen?
Yeah, I am, but
So then I think it's Mr. Dugan. The only thing that I would be curious about is whether, because you're not technically an attending, like you're not credentialed as an attending, right? Or are you?
I'm not yet, but the second year fellows are.
Right. So the second year fellows would definitely qualify. I don't know, because you're in a training status, if you would qualify or not. I imagine you would, because if you passed your boards, like why wouldn't you be getting paid? But I don't know if there's a specifier that you have to be like an attending or not.
Okay.
But I mean, you haven't taken your boards yet. You'll take them, and then you're going to be a second year. So I think that would still apply to you.
Yeah.
Because you'll have taken your boards around the same time that you'll be in attending, unofficially or officially. So I think it would still work for you. I just can't say for certain. But I would speak with Mr. Duggan just to confirm your Charlie Company's policy. But it should work. It's the same process.
Cool. Yeah. No, you made that very clear. Thank you.
All right, specialty pay. So this is the big one. It's also called incentive pay, IP, incentive specialty pay. And for psychiatry, for us, it's $43,000 annually, but it's prorated monthly. This is different than your retention bonus. That's might be obvious to some people, but not so obvious to others. So your retention bonus is the bonus that you get for every year that you extend beyond your ADSO. It's only available after completion of your ADSO. It was presented to me differently, and so I would caution you all. So when I signed my contract for incentive pay, my budget or my finance officer asked if I wanted to sign this to do a retention bonus at the same time. But you have to be careful, because essentially what you would be doing is you're signing a contract after, like, in addition to your ADSO, you are signing a contract for X number of years. So just be really careful whenever you sign a contract, just like anything else. But you would not receive any of this pay until you complete your ADSO. Even if you signed like day one of attending and you sign this, you don't start receiving this until you're 4 years or whatever. And then here's a link to this document that shows like the tables and charts of incentive pay and retention bonuses. But the TLDR, if you don't want to open it or read it, at the bottom here, this is the retention bonus for psychiatry. They actually just increased it this year. So for 2-year retention bonus is $19K. This is per year too. So it's an extra 20 grand a year. If you sign on for 3 years, it's extra 30 grand a year, 65K a year, and 85K a year for 4 and 6 years respectively. So it's a decent chunk of change. And the idea is that they want you to feel like you're competitive with your civilian counterparts. So who, again, it's a finance officer. This is like specifically a finance officer, and there's one in every single command. You need to talk with them. And so what do you need to apply for incentive pay? You need your medical license, proof of your medical license. This cannot be expired, otherwise you will not qualify. So make sure your medical licenses, if you need to renew them, are renewed. You need a BLS certificate, and that has to be up to date, and it cannot be expired. Mine was expired when I got to my duty station here in Germany, and it was a shit show, because it takes a little bit of time to get it scheduled. And especially if you're in kind of like not necessarily a rural area, but like if you're in Fort Stewart or you're in Fort Polk or somewhere maybe that doesn't have like a huge like MTF associated with it, it's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing to get BLS recertification. Like they don't offer them every day or every week like they would at like Walter Reed or something like that. So make sure you guys are paying attention to your certs and your medical licenses before you graduate residency, because it will be much more difficult to get them once you leave. And then credentials. So I vaguely remember Dr. Amin and like the program like telling us to do JCC Quas before we left, but it was never like explained to us. Nobody really like walked us through it. This is like the most important thing, because you cannot start getting incentive pay until you are credentialed. And this is the mistake that I made that nobody explained to me beforehand. Is like, unless you are credentialed at a certain location, whether that's at Walter Reed or it's at your next duty station, you are strictly not eligible for incentive pay. So in my example, I went to Captain's Career Course en route to my duty station. So my PCS was slightly delayed because my daughter was born in July. So I didn't even leave Walter Reed until September. And then I went to Captain's Career Course from September to November. And I didn't credential in Germany until I arrived here. So that entire time that I was at Career Course, 2.5 months, I could have been getting this incentive pay had I already pre-credentialed in Germany, but I didn't know that ahead of time. And so I wasn't getting paid. And they can't back pay you they can only back pay you until the date that you were credentialed. So if you forget to apply for this, it's not a huge deal as long as you get credentialed. So if you don't get credentialed, you don't get paid. The other thing, I think I have it on the next slide. I don't know, I have it on a future slide, but you're not eligible for incentive pay until 90 days after residency. So even if you were credentialed like July 1st, after you graduate, you're not eligible for incentive pay until 90 days. And I think the vague explanation that I got from our DCCS here is that every resident post-graduating has an observation period or like a supervision period for 90 days, basically just to make sure that like you're qualified, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so after you've exceeded that 90-day period of like observation or pseudo observation, then you're eligible. So yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask two things? So my understanding was that Regardless of the 90-day period, we aren't eligible to start receiving the incentive pay until October 1st because that's when the new fiscal year kicks in. And the evidence I have to support that is when we were interns, we got the incentive pay of like $100 a month or 1,200 a year. And then we switched over to PGY 234 when we got the extra $6,000 a year. But that again didn't kick in until October 1st when the government fiscal year turned over. So that was always my understanding but until that point, so until October 1st after graduation, we would still be getting the $6,000 incentive pay rather than the 43. Is that
It
not
could be.
accurate?
Yeah, no, it could be, but I think also like for people, let's say you're off cycle and you graduate residency in like October, I don't know, like if you had a pregnancy and residency and you graduate in October, you still have to abide by that 90 days. It's not like October 1st is a hard deadline. It's 90 days after you have your DHA 165, which is like your summative evaluation that has like the date of your graduation on there. So if you're off cycle for whatever.
If the October thing is also accurate, though, that would mean that at least for a month of your captain's career course, you wouldn't have been eligible anyway. I mean,
Correct.
October, November, you still got a little bit shortchanged, but at least not
Correct.
September. And the other thing for people is though, even though it's $43,000 as an attending, you then lose that 6,000 that you were getting during a resident, so it's a net gain of 37. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. And there's the other thing too that you guys will be really sad about is Bethesda or like Walter Reed has like the highest or second highest BAH. And so when you lose that BAH, you really feel it. So in years past, people have always said, stay at Walter Reed as long as you can. Like, don't leave like July 1st just because you can and you want to move into your new place. Like, your BAH will update the second you leave. Like, people will know that you left, and as soon as you check in into your new command, you lose your BAH, or it'll adjust to wherever you're located. So I think Walter Reed's is like, what is it, like $3,000 a month or 2,800? It's pretty high. And then for reference, I don't get any BAH here. I live on base in on base like apartments here. So my BAH is 0. And so when you go from that $3,000 a month to 0, even though you're not paying rent, like it sucks. So just be mindful of that, I suppose.
So then you're basically the entirety of the incentive pay is basically just equaled out.
It's pretty, yeah. It's basically like I think I'm making like an extra $1,000 a month compared to where I was.
Oh, man.
But it's just, yeah, it balances out, I guess. Okay, so on the right side of the screen here is an example of what JCC Plus looks like. These are all the different tabs that you have to fill out on the site. It's like fairly straight. It's a lot of stuff that they ask, but it's pretty straightforward. All the stuff that's got a red asterisk is required. Everything else is not required. So you could see like board certification, DEA license aren't required. But if you have it, it's good to put it on there because otherwise you'll have to update it later. But I guess if you guys are doing this in April and May, you won't have that stuff, so I wouldn't worry about it. Oh, DEA license is another thing though. Like you will have to make sure your DEA license is renewed or updated. And I think mine expired in like December of this year. So just be mindful of all your licenses and stuff. So let's see what. So once you send all your stuff in, your finance officer will send you a contract that you sign, which gets signed by your DCCS, and then it becomes official. And I have examples of what that contract looks like too that I can give you guys. So like I said, you're not eligible until 90 days post-residency. So for most people, it's October 1st. But I think if you're off cycle, you still have to abide by that 90 days. That was at least what I was instructed. And then, like I said, if you're not credentialed before October 1st, you will not start receiving incentive pay. That was what happened to me. So get credentialed is like the best thing I can tell you. And every single unit will have a credentialing officer or credentialing specialist. And like I said, if you don't know who that is, contact your S1 and ask them who it is. Your S1 will know who everybody is. So always go through S1 if you have no idea. And your S1, in theory, should be like one of the first people that reaches out to you from your new command. And then, yeah, like I said, you're eligible for back pay of your incentive pay only up until the time where you were credentialed. Where your next duty station. Why? Because money. Board certification pay is the same as incentive pay. It's just that you have to send like your documentation to show that you were board certified, that you passed. So it's the same exact process that we just talked about for incentive pay. You just have to send your finance officer a couple different documents, board verification. Actually, I think that might just be it, just your board certification. And then they send you a contract, and then I think board certification pay is like $6,000 a year. So in total, it's like about $50,000 a year between board certification and incentive pay. And that's it for the slideshow. And then I'll stop presenting for now. Yeah. Hold up. I have some PDFs that I can show you guys. All right, you see my screen? You give me a thumbs up, Steven?
Okay. Yeah, we can still see it. Sorry, my mic was muted.
There you go. All right, so just to go through, I got like 8 PDFs here, and then we'll be done unless you guys have questions. So this is what an MFR looks like, just a really basic one. This was Keenan's that he used. So you can see his commander signed it on December 10th, and then he wrote the date on here, September 1st. Keenan actually sent this to his commander in November. So we fudged the dates just so that we could like apply for board reimbursement pay before we took the exam. And most of our commanders were like super chill about it, and it's not a huge deal. But Keenan's was literally just 2 lines, and it's just him asking for reimbursement and just his commander saying like it's because it serves as continuing education and demonstration of excellence. Matt Hunter's was a little bit different. This is basically Matt Hunter requesting reimbursement, and then just saying that he confirmed that he passed. He referenced his regulation for Fort Drum, and then this was before his commander signed it, but his commander would obviously sign this too. Matt did not fudge the date, which is fine. It obviously worked out for him, but that's just, I think, kind of proof that you don't need to do that. I attempted to fudge the date, but if you notice what my date is, it's actually future dated to 2023, and nobody noticed it or said anything about it until I noticed it. I was like, oh shit, I put 2023 on there, and they're like, okay, yeah, everything looks good. My commander signed it and everything. Like nobody caught this, so I can't imagine this matters that much, but I did it anyways. But yeah, every unit will have their own regulation regarding this stuff. So mine was like funding for education. I just said what I was requesting reimbursement for, how it benefits my AOC, and then when I took the exam and when I confirmed that I was passing. These were all required sections of an MFR based on my instruction. Here was my instruction. I'll send this to Steven just for reference, but your own unit should have their own instruction. It obviously won't be this specifically, but it'll have your own instruction for how to apply for this stuff. And it's like fairly detailed and gives you like a step-by-step process and what you're eligible for or what you're not eligible for. Mine was like maximum of $4,000, so obviously I fit under that. Here's an example of the contract that my finance officer sent me. So it's just like your name, social, blah, 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 a bunch of words. And then this one was for board certification pay. You can see it's $6,000. It starts like October 1st. It expires, what does this say, 2032, so 10 years. Geez. Yeah, because your board eligibility is for 10 years. Yeah, and then you sign it at the bottom, and then you start getting paid. It's pretty cool. Incentive pay is very similar. It's got a little bit more information on here. It has your license number and stuff like that. But you can see, so period of continuance, I will agree, will be effective. And then this is the date that I was credentialed. So it will show the date that you were credentialed on here. If it is after October 1st, then it will be whatever date you were credentialed. So for me, I lost from October 1st to December 19th that much money of incentive pay. So really, really, really get credentialed as soon as you can so that your date is 2023, October 1st. And then that's when you'll start getting your monthly paychecks that are prorated. But again, this is just what a standard contract looks like. I will send you guys all of these in case your finance officer has not done this before, then you can just send them this as a reference. The SF3881, like I said, is on Army Pubs. It's basically just a DFAS document for you to input your like address and then your bank, whatever like bank account you want it to go into. This is, like I said, and then the top part right here, my finance office actually filled this in for me, but this should be the standard for everybody, I believe, because DFAS is DFAS. So, like I said, I'll send this to you guys as well. Whenever you guys are applying for this, you would just put, wherever you see my information, you just put your information in the financial institution, just put whatever you want your direct deposit account to be, and then that's where DFAS will direct deposit your refund for. And then I didn't explain this in the PowerPoint, but Matt Hunter's command actually requested that he fill out this form. It's an SF-1034, also available on Army pubs. And this was so that DFAS could process his voucher. It basically gave him like a voucher account is what he explained to me, but it's a pretty simple form. He said that I could share this with you guys. This is all he had to fill out, and then his finance office filled out the rest. But it was just like, when he paid for his board exam, when he took his board exam, the cost of it, and then a little bit of information about his address and his command, and that was it. So DFAS needed this to create a voucher account for him. They need this to figure out where they're going to send the money to. And then, like I said, you need the MFR and the receipt. And then that's what you need for board certification reimbursement. And that's pretty much it. Unless you guys have any questions. Like I said, I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but none of this was explained to me, and I lost a lot of money, and I didn't want you guys to lose any money. So if anybody has questions that didn't come to this, you guys should have my email. And if not, Stephen can, when I send these documents to Stephen, if you want to you can forward it or whatever, but he can CC my email if you guys have any questions. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. So.
That's very kind of you, Andrew. And for the audience, Dr. Johnson is doing this out of his own goodwill, of no requirement of anybody else. So, and at 10 p.m. at night. So thank you so much for your time this evening. This was super helpful and definitely made clear a lot of processes that, yeah, I had no idea about either. I'm hoping that we can not only put this video online, but if some of those documents don't have personally identified information, maybe we can put those up there too. We'd have to kind of scrub them first, but
I'm pretty sure I scrubbed them. So the only ones that did were like the contracts, but I took out my socials on all of them. And I mean, you can look up my license number. I don't know why I cared to delete that, but I'm pretty sure there's no like PII. And then I looked at Matt's and Keenan's too, and there was nothing on there. So you should be good to go. And I'll just forward the emails to you, Stephen.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I'll talk with Dr. O'Leary and Dr. Fisher about getting this online for everybody, and I'll let people know they can reach out to you. Also, for the audience, Andrew's phone number switched to a Germany phone number, so he's not as easily found on WhatsApp. But if anybody's having issues with that, I'm sure we can figure it out together. So.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a good rest of your night.
Germany. Yep. Have a great one. Take care.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.